All right, folks, thank you for joining George and I as we continue down the road of talking about GPTs and large language models and what you can do with generative AI. And, we took a step back and we thought, hey, maybe it'd be a good time to talk a little about use cases, exactly what you could do with this stuff. And then George also on the side has snuck around and gotten some information about expenses and cost and challenges with this as well. So, George, do you have any initial use case you want to jump into that you prep for?
Yeah, I'll talk about use cases, and I want to let me here.
I'm you pop something up, I can show it. Just add it to screen. Add it to
share screen, and I'm gonna share screen here.
So what is George going to show us here, folks? It should be very interesting.
Okay.
There's so much you can do now by showing your activities and what you've got happening.
So what I'm going to do here is just show you what's possible with the GPT area, and it should.
I just gotta get off of this page.
It's off, right?
No, not off.
Let me do this. Let me stop sharing screen. Okay. Let me share right now. Share screen. Okay.
George, getting there.
Yep. Here we go.
But as we start talking about some of this stuff, the expense is absolutely insane.
Okay, so what I'm showing you here, this is a customer success plan. It's not real, but it's kind of played around with it. And I just want, a lot of you are in project management activities, so I want you to see it's a fairly large document, and it has all kinds of activities, and in fact, there's a set of stakeholders in here. You could see all these names of people. There are dates for the activities. And so if you were project managing this set of activities, you could see here, and I'm going to jump right to here. So there's a set of dates, and we see like a product launch, and we see a how to use the e-learning communications, and all of those things are part of what's going on in this activity.
Now, there's no special template that needs to be used. This is just put into some format that was easy to format the information.
Yeah, that was just a Word doc, general stuff. Nothing special. Now, here we go. This is a GPT. It was created, and that document sitting right here in the GPT. And what's really cool about that is you'll hear this thing called retrieval augmented generation. It's just a bunch of fancy words, and there's other words. But the bottom line is you got to train AI to be able to use it, because the AI itself won't be able to do the things you're expected to do unless you give it some kind of training. Now, even in this case, we didn't really give it a lot of knowledge, but we did give it that file.
This is especially true when you're creating this capability. When you're using ChatGPT out of the box, it's already trained.
Yep.
We're talking specifically on use cases for what is a GPT, which is a capability in ChatGPT 4. What's it called now? 4.0, or what's the fancy term? Do you remember off the top of your head?
It's 4 Omni.
4 Omni. Thank you.
And by the way, for all of you, this thing I'm showing you, I think about a month ago, we talked about GPTs and these things you would create. A month ago when we spoke about it, you could only use it if you were actually a paid customer. And so that
you couldn't engage. You have to be a paid customer to build the GPT, right?
But and also use it. If I
now you don't have to pay. So if I can engage it without any type of agreement.
Now you don't need any agreement. So this is what's cool for all of you. Let me show you something. You saw that document. It was really large. I'm going to say, let's see what happens here. And I made these names up. So what does Steve Bannon do? We'll see. And so it went into the document. It read the document, so it knows what Steve Bannon. So in other words, what we are able to do now.
I thought he was in jail.
Yeah, I kind of made up.
You tell that George is from the DC area.
So Steve was, I put him in there and some other people on this project, but you can see it gives you information. And I'm going to jump to something here. I'll show you here. Let me jump here. So I'm going to just take a look at something here. It's September 11th, and we're supposed to do a how to use e-learning communication. We're supposed to send that out for the product launch. I'm going to just do something. It is September 11th, and we did not complete.
And we just switched so you folks can see the screen as much as possible.
Okay, so now I'm saying
lift it up a little higher, George. Because and September 11th we did not complete the how to use. Is that a problem? Okay, so it's telling you what the problem is.
And you want me to lift it up a little higher there?
No, yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So you could say, yes, it is a problem. Is not completed by September, as the date marks the beginning of the scheduled launch for the e-learning. So here, just think of this. This is a document that exists with all of this stuff in it. And I know maybe a lot of you are project managers. You work with this kind of stuff and you know it, you know it by your heart, you know where things are happening and what's going on. But I dropped this document into an AI, and now it can be accessed with natural language queries. So somebody doesn't have to call you, and I could see on my on schedule, do I have a problem? It even gives me like immediate actions to mitigate this type of problem. Now, tell you what, if you read these and you said, well, I wouldn't do that. Okay. If you generated another set of rules for how to deal with issues, we could drop that right here and it would
Hey,
follow.
George, let's try something interesting if this is possible. Could you send me the link and then I link to it and show how somebody who's linking to it interfaces with it?
All right.
So what we're saying now, George built this. So George is interfacing with the GPT right now within the construct of what he created. What we're trying to say is davidm@softed.com. What we're trying to say is that anybody can now engage this document to get information that they may need for this project. And so instead of picking up the phone call as a project manager, you could basically send out this link. And then the link would ultimately allow me to engage.
I just sent it
GPT.
to you.
So George, talk a little bit more about this. I'm going to go off in a second and see how I can access.
So, let's see how. Okay, I'm pulling the full GPT up. This is what it looks like to another person, what David should see. Are there ways to reduce costs? So, this is just an arbitrary question to the system. And it's coming up with some ideas on how to reduce costs. The point I'm making is this document, which is a project plan, can be accessed in many different ways to talk to it. And depending on who you are or what you're trying to do, it can now produce answers for you without, well, it can immediately for one thing, but secondly, it can produce answers without bothering a project manager or engaging another person. And so your leadership, for one thing, could actually have this right in front of them. And you could build one of these for every one of your customers. So that in itself becomes very powerful as well.
Now let's talk about let's talk about this. I'm still waiting for the link to come. But from a cost standpoint, George, if I'm going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 of these running, are there any concerns about going above my usage, my tokens? And how would that happen? What would happen?
Well, so now we get into a really interesting area, and I'm going to stop sharing here for a sec. This is a real interesting area that we get into. There are some misnomers about what's going on in terms of using AI. So I don't want to be all negative and just say, it doesn't do what you think it's going to do. But I also want to not be naive. AI, is it going to replace all of our jobs and all of that? Maybe. But I got to tell you, it won't do it all by itself. And maybe in the words of Tom Cruise in Top Gun, not today. All right? Because here's the situation. I gave that project management plan. I'm using ChatGPT 4.0. Yes, it does work pretty well. It's not bad. The question you just asked, David, will that work at $30 a month? Yeah, it'll do it at $30 a month.
That one GPT.
No, you can do more and more of them. But
Okay.
here's where the problem starts coming in. If you start using it extensively, and
Now, what is the definition of extensively?
it has to do with the amount of tokens or the amount of requests you start asking. And if you have 5, 10, 15 of them and you're running them hard all day, you'll start to receive messages from OpenAI. And this could be other companies as well.
This is happening to us. Actually, George, in our classes, this is happening to us.
Okay. So
in the middle of class, people are exceeding their token limit as we're teaching them maybe AI for project management.
I happen to have AT&T, and I have AT&T Unlimited. I used to think unlimited meant unlimited, but I found out that unlimited is actually limited. The same is true with OpenAI. So, here's the thing is, I think what's happening is the industry, which wants us all to use AI, is promoting things like GPTs, which can be used in an ad hoc fashion. If you start to make it at a scaling and you want consistency, you may have to then purchase a corporate license with OpenAI, which then the costs are going to go up. And they can start to go up quite significantly. In addition, you may also want to
now let's talk about that for a second. So when I do a GPT, I'm renting a big environment from OpenAI.
Right.
And I'm renting it by paying a monthly fee.
Right.
Almost like what we do with storage, right? And the storage comparison is very similar.
It is.
From a pricing standpoint.
It is.
Okay. So if you start maxing out tokens, so if you have 20 GPTs going, 100 people are hitting each one of these GTPs, it's all coming into you. The traffic is registering on your account.
Right.
And people will get notifications that they can't access it.
So the worst thing that'll happen today, if you purchase a corporate GPT account from OpenAI, and again, there's other companies that do this, is you will end up getting shut down. And today, our company, we've experienced this at times, talk to their help desk, and you can get shut down for like 3 hours. So, and then you can come back and use it again.
Yep.
So
without the corporate. So basically you have a service level issue if you decide to make this mission critical. So you built one for a customer service phone center, and they're using it, and it goes down.
If it goes mission critical, if you're doing that kind of mission critical stuff, you have to pay. So the AI, and this is where it starts coming, where they say, you hear the people say, hey, AI is going to replace all of our jobs. It might, but I'm going to tell you, whoever owns the company is going to have to pay. So
you're paying either way.
If you got rid of some employees, any employees, you still are, it's not free. This costs money. And by the way, the part we've left out, it's not actually, the GPT is good. And I showed you this, and it actually does work okay for some queries and doing some simple stuff with a project management flow. It does work. But in reality, in order for it to work in a consistent and scalable fashion, you probably need somebody to help you train this system, establish a set of rules, and do things. So I don't know, you're probably paying $20,000, $50,000 to somebody, a consultant, that's helping you put this together. I mean, you could do it on your own. It'll take a while to get that also, but it's going to cost. Either way, it costs either your hours, your time, or you hire a consultant and they help you do it. Now, I'm going to show you something.
So even when you outsource it, because the big thing for me with GPT, so OpenAI offers the GTP capability if you have 4 Omni or 4.0.
But it's limited.
It's your license. You're kind of like a software. It's like I call it a public-private hybrid. But even in the public-private hybrid, as you start rocking, you increase your usage of GTPs. You get very specific. You're going to have the cost of training. Maybe it's not just you that's going to be doing that training.
Yeah. So somebody has to train it or do things. And then I'll add one more thing to this. We're kind of take a leap. You could say, well, I don't want to go pay some commercial company. I saw that there's some open source AI systems. There are. There are some open source AI.
Well, now you're moving into the large language model space.
Yeah, and you could, let's say you took Facebook's Llama 3, which is good, and you can actually buy that relatively easy with a RTX card if you want to keep it local and have your own server. But you could say, I don't want to do that. I want to actually have the server sitting in a data center, and I'll pay for that because I don't want to deal with having a server at my location. Just to kind of give you a general idea, it still has costs. This is stuff that you don't normally see. But an AWS server, not to say this is going to happen to you, but I just want to give you like an idea. To use a GPU space server, it could cost you in the area of $200,000 a year.
So your rent. So instead of building the hardware environment in your own data center, you are going over and you're going to buy the hardware. You're rent the hardware environment from one of these three providers. And that rental cost is going to be what we're showing you right now.
Yeah. And then and again, the part we left out, if you got a free open a free Llama server and you put that onto AWS or Azure or one of these environments, you still have to do, and even then, a little bit more significant time in creating the training to make it right. And I'm going to say,
I think even more than just significant, George, because the difference between what you're talking about now and the GPT is that you have to really work the environment you built and train it to the things you want that environment to do, right?
Yeah.
But going back to the cost for a second, what type of load is that?
I gave it just 8-hour days load. I didn't do 24/7 heavy load, just load on the system. So
is it because the processor's so expensive and hot? What's driving that cost?
The GPU costs are expensive, and the questions that you ask use a lot of resource.
Okay, so it's really an energy issue and a card issue.
Let's be appreciative of one thing. That document that I showed you, that was like 35, 40 pages of a project plan. And I asked it like, who's the project leader and what happened on this date?
And that's nothing. That's this.
Yeah, it just banged through that like instantly. It took a lot of GPU cycles to do that. And I will say this, I don't know what OpenAI is doing right now, but I probably almost can say this for sure. They're losing money on my account.
Oh yeah, they were losing the money on all. That's a known fact. They are losing money.
$30. I'm paying $30 per user, and I am using that to show you something. It probably costs more than $30.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost going back to the problem on the business model side of this is going to become very significant. I mean, there's a lot of business model similarities. What's going on with streaming? Nobody could ever make money on streaming, so streaming's starting to look more and more like cable. And it's funny how the business model's adjusting. At some point, if we get hooked into this, like it's an addictive scenario, what is ultimately going to be the cost for them to make a profit?
Yeah, well, it's like always, it's the business to business users that are going to be the ones that generate the cost. Being able to go in here and say, are there ways to reduce costs? And it come up this quickly and say, here are things to reduce costs. Imagine if you're a leader, you have a project manager leading a project, and and you ask questions like that. And I don't know that.
Well, let's go back to the use case. So the use case in this is a project plan on building an e-learning product. It's a heavy document. So one of the things that a leader has problems with is, who do I trust? Like the project director might say this, the portfolio manager might say that, the project manager might say this. So it's almost like a source of truth, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, this is what the project plan says.
And I don't know that this is necessarily extremely accurate. It's trying to put together a set of numbers here. These could be way out because I just gave it right away.
Yeah.
I think they seem.
But what we're saying is that you could work it to actually say, all right, where can I save the money? How much money is that savings? Yeah. And what's my now? Can you ask the pros and cons? The key now would be, if I did this, what would I lose?
So
say you did number 2. Say, okay, I optimize the use of Jabber What would I lose in that optimization?
By optimizing, see how the point I'm making for all of you is that it's conversational, and this is the key. But I want you to understand also, for all of you, the way the AI works. I gave it one document. You have to give it more documents.
Yeah, the more data, the more powerful.
Yeah, and this is the part also that a lot of people never bring up with AI is that you ask it questions and then it gives you a bad answer, and then you say it's hallucinating or it's no good, or you try to run with that answer. I'm going to tell you this: the AI needs lots of training. Think of it, you just got a pet.
As it relates though to the GPT, I mean, if you're working just in the environment of OpenAI, that training's already done.
No. You actually, the training, the documents that you need to add to that include your set of rules and.
Oh no, I know. In the GPT piece of it, I'm talking if I'm just working outside of it. This is why I want people don't get confused about. If I'm just working in OpenAI, the concept there is that the system is trained. Now you might want to tighten up your prompt and train different prompts to do different things. But what George is talking about is when you actually engage the service called GPT within the new forum.
And and the key thing here is now you can add rules from your company. But I will tell you, you will start to find out that the AI really needs a lot of support.
George, did you get excited or something?
Yeah, the good news is that the AI itself, if you spend the time with it, will really generate a lot of effective things for you. But you can't just use it right out the door. And I want to show you guys one more thing about this as well, just to make sure. I'm going to present one more time here real quick. And let me make sure this is there. Share screen. Okay, here you go. Let's go.
I'm going to check and see if I finally got my link or not.
Did it ever come?
It hasn't come yet.
That's weird. I don't know. I'd have to check why it didn't do that. So
I'm thinking it might be a firewall issue, which is something good to learn.
Yeah, did you read this at the very bottom here? It says Mount Tam's innovations workspace chats are not used to train our models. Right? And
go back higher. Go back higher so you can show them that. There it is. Okay. Mount Tam innovations workplace chats aren't used to train our models.
Again, back to a cost thing. If you pay $20 a month for ChatGPT, and I've heard this come up to also, keep in mind a couple things, especially if you're a leader in your company. Your employees are training that product. If you don't pay for their ChatGPT or they use ChatGPT ad hoc, then if they ever left the company or anything like that, all of that knowledge goes with their account.
Yes.
So,
I mean, if you built, so this is what makes LinkedIn look like nothing when it compares to, so the same situation that we talked about this before, George, same thing happens with LinkedIn. You build a brand on LinkedIn, which is your brand, but you're exposing your company's brand. You leave the company potentially loses all that exposure. But this is catastrophically worse.
Yeah. So you probably want to build a workspace. Now, the part that'll give you heartburn again, if you own the company or you're financially responsible, is in order to do this, you have to create members in your company and you pay $30 a month per employee. So if you have 5-10 employees, you're paying OpenAI $300 a month or something like that to have this ability to keep everybody's chats learning together,
keeping everybody's GPTs together, and then if they leave, they don't walk away with the GPTs and the agents they built
exactly
to run some of the projects you're working on.
Now you get one nice thing: the workspace chats aren't used for training, which means that I don't know exactly. I'm not going to be the lawyer on this, but I will say it to this: the stuff I put in here is only used by my company. It's not used to go out and train the public world, which can happen in the public system and probably really will. So you got to be careful.
Most people still don't trust that service level agreement. But George is right. So I didn't mean it that way, but within the GPT, your information is protected.
Now I'm going to show you something that's kind of scary. And I think I showed this before at one other time, but I just want to show it again because I think it's really important. And I'm not trying to pick on a company because it could be many companies do this, but I'm going to show you something here. This is a company that makes PowerPoint-like stuff, but there could be a lot of companies that do things. This is unusual about your click-through on licenses. By the way, this is very tiny in the terms and condition at the bottom of their website, which you probably never would click on.
Yeah.
Look at what it says. You acknowledge that all intellectual property, including copyright, patents, trademarks, and trade secrets of the service are owned by NVIDIA or its suppliers. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No.
I work with some large clients. I know large clients that are using this product. It's maybe you want that. If you don't care, that's great. But if you care about your intellectual property, I tell you, you better.
What's the output? So let me ask you this question. It all comes down to the criticality of the output. What type of output would be coming out of a system like this?
Well, these guys make like YouTubes and stuff.
Okay.
And they also make PowerPoint. They make all kinds they make video.
So how critical is a video? You're allowed to use it. You're using it, but do you need to own it?
Well, suppose I made a video for the world we were in, which is certification.
Then you have a problem because then there's a problem because they could claim rights to the money you make off that product.
Well, yeah, that would be really the worst. That would be unbelievable. But the other side of it is you create something and you're selling it, and all of a sudden your competitors have the same thing you created. And because it says they can give it to anybody.
Yeah.
And
so what we're talking about here is the fact that now, as you start learning how to use these systems to scale and repeat, you need to step back and really start thinking about how are you going to scale and repeat? What type of tooling are you going to use to scale and repeat? And what does that tooling do to you? And what does it obligate you to? Because that's a big obligation. Okay, you want to use that tool, great, but you're basically giving them rights. Now, would they hold up in court? We don't know yet. But do you want to? Do you want that No, nobody wants to go to court.
Yeah. Nobody wants to do that. And as we come right to the end here, I thought this is an easy link. It's situational-awareness.ai.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty easy to see. This is a great article if you want to look at futures of what's could happen. This is one of those read it in a dark room kind of thing.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, Lord have mercy.
So,
but if we had to kind of put a stamp on the use case scenario, and the use case scenario becomes, I have a bunch of information I want other people to access and work with. It's focused, It's specific, but it's got meat to it. This capability is extremely powerful.
Yes.
I've got, if I have a bunch of salespeople that need to dig around and learn more about the specs of a product, GPT could be fantastic. Yep. Go ahead.
I'll give you a use case right away that I saw that's just incredible. So we work with a large company that has 45,000 products in many of its accounts, in various accounts, 60,000 products, and they produce promotions. So how long does it take with pivot tables to figure out if maybe my customer Walmart or General Motors can qualify for a promotion that I created on a product?
No, it's gotta be nuts.
With having all their assets into the system, I could just say, here's a promotion, put it in my GPT.
Yep.
Put their assets in my GPT and say, does this qualify for that promotion? Yeah. And it'll say yes. And I go, what does? And then I can pick up the phone and call them and say, like a minute later, I'm calling them and I'm saying, hey, you got about 5,000 products that qualify for this promotion. You want to order it?
That is where the power starts coming into play. I mean, pivot tables have always been very powerful, but the problem is not many people can build them and not many people access them.
Right.
This is basically the pivot table for the masses.
Yeah,
that's a great concept to really dig into there, George. I love it. But, I get out of this one. This has been an interesting conversation. It becomes this idea that if you want to scale and repeat, you got to take a step back.
Yep.
There are some issues that could get you in big trouble, especially if you have a really smart person who started building this out on their own account, and then they could hold you hostage.
Yep. So there's a lot of little landmines out there.
That's a big landmine. I'm going away. I'm taking my toy with me. Good luck.
Yes. And the industry also is out there, and I think you said it, they're kind of promoting this stuff like it's almost free and that we're going to just replace employees. It has a significant financial cost to start replacing people. It's not going to do it for free.
Yeah. But the thing about it though, George, is it's a capital expense.
Yes.
You can depreciate it. That's the problem with
you have the money.
But the problem with human expense is that it's expensed every.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's one of the concerns I have is that, when you really start thinking about it, it's a big cost, but it's an asset. It's depreciable, and you'll be able to show profit.
It's just hard with a lot of companies struggling right now to start coming up with cash in the hundreds of thousands.
That's if they're going to build their really own. Yeah, they're going to build their. Well, I just had an interesting call from somebody asking me from a big bank perspective to start doing some stuff, which I thought was, okay. They're starting to really look at what they can do with this. So, and I think that's what's going on right now. I think people are really those who know are starting to dig in and really think about what can we do? What can we do? What can we do?
Yep. I think.
Well, anyways, we'll have that course for them to learn how to build the system coming out here.
Yep.
We're going to have that course on purpose-built GPTs, AI agents, and LLMs that George is putting together. And we're selling it through SoftEd Mount Tam. Anyways, we appreciate your time, folks. Great having a conversation with you. Until next time.
All right. Take care, you guys.